Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome back to This Week in Anderson on USBN Sports Podcast with Dingo the Coach. I am Dingo, and this is the coach, and Steve Ellis. And Steve, I'm really, really excited about our next guest. Paul Menter is, one hell of an athlete, but really, a heck of a runner. And I can't wait to talk to him and talk about his recent induction into the Anderson Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I remember him and all the things that he was accomplishing. I mean, he was like a living legend back then, let alone
Yeah.
now. But one of the things you and I talk about, Danny, is when we do some of these podcasts, and we've done like the quarterbacks, and we've talked about we're going to do running backs, like the all-time running backs in Anderson history, stuff like that. When we do track,
Yeah,
this guy is going to be in the near the top, if not the top, and we'll get Andy Wolf's opinion on that. But it's great to talk to him. We haven't seen him for a long time. We're going to get to see him at the Hall of Fame ceremony, which is well deserved.
Yeah, and it's gonna. We don't want to steal too much of the thunder for the Hall of Fame, but we're trying to do this not only with Paul, but we're gonna have Mark Shields as another one that is going in the Hall of Fame. Mike Shields, I'm sorry, Mike is going to the Hall of Fame, and we got some other guys we're gonna try to get on. But Paul, I know we've been trying to hook up here for a while, but thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of your podcasts. I've seen several of them, and I just love it. So I'm just really honored to be on it and to have an opportunity to chat with you guys and share some old stories and talk about the history of Anderson athletics.
Yeah,
and love the jacket.
Yeah, and it still fits, right?
Yes.
Look at this jacket.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that style profile right there.
And so
awesome.
I did spend a little time. I got to tell you a quick story before we get started, because I spent a little time gearing up for tonight, right? So I was running around, I was looking for all my old Anderson stuff, and I found this.
Oh my God, look at this.
Look at that.
Yes.
Look
my
at
Andy
that.
Wolf track t-shirt.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
So I got that.
That's awesome.
And then, I found this from our graduating class. We were, of course, the 50th graduating class of Anderson High School. So I found this, which is a mug.
Yeah.
It says Anderson High School 50th graduating class. And, of course, on the other side, you've got
the Redskin.
The Redskin.
Yes. I love it.
The Redskins.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
And if anybody, I'm probably more on record about my feelings about that than anybody from my column that I used to write for the Aspen Daily News. So you can find my column on the Aspen Daily News. You can read about my feelings about that. So
we appreciate love the old stuff. And like we said before we went on air, you're the first, I think, person that we've had that actually fits in their jacket since we've interviewed them. So it's pretty cool to see. I look like a fat man in a little coat. That's what I look like when I put my coat on. It and the buttons pop off. So
that's it.
I love it.
So Paul, let's take it back to growing up in Anderson. Talk about where you grew up in Anderson and what it was like as a young kid living in Anderson.
So we were some of the state's folks. So lived, I know, right? We lived on the cul-de-sac on Tonopah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where we lived, and Sam Tilford was around the corner.
Yeah.
And Jeff and his brother Doug Cornettit and Tierney O'Rourke and his brother Brian and their sister Jeannie were next door neighbors up on Yellow Glen. And Alan Souter lived up the road from me for a while before his family moved to Turpin. There was a whole group of us that would just work at Tom McWilliams, who you guys may or may not remember. His family moved to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right when we were starting high school, I think. I don't remember the exact year. But I've been able to keep in touch with Tom through Facebook. It was like every weekend, the summertime, every weekend I'm out on the Schwinn 10-speed, and we're going to, Julius Park and playing baseball, or we're, riding to who knows where to try and not get into too much trouble. But it was just, obviously, it's the days before the internet and phones and video games and all that stuff. And so we were out having fun, on the streets. It was a great time. It was a great time, a great place to grow up.
Yeah, it definitely was, and obviously the Summit side, Steve's a little jealous because he didn't grow up on the Summit side like we did, and the
Yep.
Summit side was probably the better side, Paul. I think.
It was absolutely the better side. There's
Yeah,
no question about it. So
It's like a small city. I tell you.
it kind of is.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like, one of those big late 60s, early 70s suburbs, talking about living in the burbs, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
But it didn't really fit into that. People criticize the burbs as being soulless and placeless, and that just was not the case. I don't know what it's like now, but it was absolutely not the case back then. I mean, everybody
man.
knew who everybody's neighbors were.
Yep.
Everybody got together. It was a very different world back then, and it was really that whole change, I think, was really about society, more than it is about the place that
Right.
people live or
Yeah.
live. So the way
So Paul, when
society.
you were in Summit, and I'm sure you gathered some buddies and you were playing football and basketball and everything like that. But when you started getting into the like organized sports, what did you start playing when you were starting to grow up there?
So it was the first thing was my brother Mark and we played say soccer.
Yeah.
So we played with Phil and Dave Roberto
Hmm.
and a bunch of other kids on the Precision Built Bullets when we were
Precision build.
probably
Nice.
10 or 11 years old. And then we went on and played soccer for a really, as I got older, played for a couple of really good teams. I mean, that program was so excellent. I mean, it was just there was
Right.
so much competition and there were so many good teams. And I also played Little League Baseball for the Denhart Insurance Braves, I think, when I was 11 or 12 years old, and then for the Rangers. We played. What was the team? Was it Ohio Blueprint that was
Yes. Yes. Blueprint.
the we played they were like you know the superstar team, right?
Right.
And we played them in the championship game, but they beat us in the championship game one year. I
Oh,
can't remember what year it was exactly, but I do remember that. So
Ohio
it was a
Blueprint.
lot
That's
of
great.
fun.
but you got a great memory. I love the names of these teams that you have. The insurance company. Yeah. All right. So you graduated in 81, is that right?
80,
Oh,
19
80.
class of 80.
Class of 80. So yeah, that's right. Duh. So you were with my brother Brad.
Yeah, I was with your brother. Yeah, we played.
Yeah.
We played. Your brother and I played baseball together. Played basketball together in middle
Yes.
school, and played
Yes.
baseball
Yes.
together for a short period of time for the Midland Braves.
That's it. Yeah.
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 So yeah,
All right. So you went to Anderson Middle School,
I did.
and you played. Did you play basketball for Clarkston?
Jerry Frickman in 7th grade and Glenn Clarkston in the 8th grade.
How
I
about
did.
that?
Yep.
And the coach Danny Clarkston was also the bus driver.
He was the bus driver and he was the track coach as well
Really?
Okay.
for the middle school.
Okay.
So and that's where I started running track was in middle school as well. So
Okay.
he was my first track coach. Jerry Frickman was actually my first basketball coach, and then Glenn Clarkston in 7th grade, and then Glenn Clarkston in 8th grade. And when I started playing basketball, and of course, it's not my basketball. And I got to tell you a quick story. I got to remember to tell you a story before we get done here. But
All right.
Yep.
of course, as anybody who knows me knows, it wasn't my basketball skills that got me into the Anderson Hall of Fame. I'll tell you that right now. But I did play varsity basketball for 3 years
Oh wow.
because our class was the first class where the Turpin Anderson split happened. So, you think back about the impact that had on both programs and the
Yeah.
growth and Anderson went into a bit of a down cycle, during 77, 78, 79, 80, when that was happening. The talent got split and both schools suffered as a result of that. You think about the teams we would have had
Oh,
at Anderson if
Yep.
those two could I mean, imagine, that Anderson team in 79 that went to the state championship and lost in soccer.
Yep.
Do they lose if Matt English is on the field with them
Oh my
that year?
gosh. Yeah.
There's and imagine Who was the kid that was the Olympic swimmer for Turpin and Wilson for Anderson? Imagine those two guys on the
Yeah,
same
Yeah,
yeah,
Dave Wilson.
swim
Yeah,
team together.
yeah, yeah.
And and I've thought about it. It's like you think of the players that would have been on that basketball team, and I started for 3 years. I started as a sophomore. I was raw. I had no skills. I mean, I was just completely raw. And I got a little better over time, but I was never, I never turned into the basketball player Dick Sander thought I should have been. But he was a great coach, imagine I don't think I'd have cracked the starting lineup, until I was a senior, and even then I might have been the sixth man
Yeah.
if Anderson and Turpin hadn't split up, I
wow.
think. So
So,
so anyway, that's just a kind of a quick aside on that. But I did play basketball for Jerry Frickman and Glenn Clarkson. And Glenn Clarkson was my first track coach. And that's where I started to get the idea of, doing multiple events, because I discovered pretty quickly that I wasn't a really good distance runner and I wasn't really that fast, but I could do a lot of things fairly well.
Yeah.
So I started running hurdles because none of the fast kids wanted to run hurdles. So I ran the hurdles.
And you got a lot of records in those hurdles.
Yeah, and so I got into the high jump. I had pretty good jump. I was pretty good. I could jump pretty well, and so I got into the high jump, and so that I did pretty well there too. And then I was pretty versatile, so I could do a lot of different events, and that was kind of my secret weapon, I guess.
did you play football too, Paul?
Football. I didn't play football until my senior year, and if you
Okay.
remember, that was the first year that John Stowe was the
Yes.
coach. And I saw those guys practicing, early practice in August, and I decided I wanted to be part of that because it looked to me like they were trying to build something that was really fun and successful. And I had literally never played football, and I talked to Coach Sander about it, if he would have a problem with me playing football, and he kind of gave me the green light to try it. And so I did. I played football that year, and I ended up playing end. And I played in 5 games. And after the 5th game, I had an eye doctor's appointment, and my eye doctor looked at me and he goes, "What, you're playing football? Why are you doing that?" Because a couple of years earlier than that, I had been hit in the eye with a baseball, and I had lost the lens in my right eye. So
Oh.
I had a what they call a traumatic cataract, and the lens disintegrated in my eye, and I lost the majority of my vision in my right eye, and the eye doctor was concerned that hits to the head could cause a detached retina. And he
Oh my
told me that I
goodness.
needed to stop playing football, and it scared me. And so I stopped playing football after 4 or 5 games that year. And
Oh,
of course,
wow.
that was the bottom, right? I mean, that was the 0-10 year
Yeah.
for Anderson football. I felt really bad about it, that I had to stop playing, but it scared me. And
Yeah. Heck
I
yeah.
remember Coach Stowe. I remember this vividly when they did the presentation of the team at the end. He insisted that I stand up as part of the team, and he made a point of telling everybody that he respected my decision. And he didn't have to do anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But he did that for me, and it meant a lot to me.
Sure.
Paul,
He did that
he's
for me.
I never played football either up until my junior year, and he came up and just kept bugging the living crap out of me. Come on, play football, play football. And I tell you what, Coach Stowe, he's one of my favorite coaches. I love that guy to death. I would have done anything for him. Unfortunately, I'm sure you probably knew, passed away.
Yep, I heard
But
that.
he was just a great guy, like you said, and it does not surprise me that he did that for you.
Yeah, no, so it really was. It was a very nice gesture for a young kid
Yep.
who had to make a hard decision kind of early in life. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So let's get a little bit into the track.
okay.
You obviously, Andy Wolf is absolutely a legend at Anderson High School, and so talk a little bit about, you were saying you started in middle school. when you got to high school, and talk a little bit about that transition for you and what Andy Wolf, did for you and helped you out, and what it was like, being coached by Andy Wolf.
Sure. So, when I got to high school, obviously I went out for track as a freshman, and there was a JV team, which is the team that I was on. I think I scored my freshman year. Of course, we had that cinder track, right? So it was back in the days of the old cinder track.
Yeah.
And so I competed JV in the hurdles and in the high jump, and and they had just, I think, gone to where they had this low hurdle race, the 330-yard low hurdles. I think it just been introduced. So there was the 120-yard high hurdles, and which were, I think, as a JV, they were a lower level, but all the details probably don't matter that much. But I competed and at what I remember about my freshman year is I competed in one varsity race. We went to a relay meet. Some track meets, as you probably know, are all relays. So and we competed in a relay meet, and they needed one more hurdler for a shuttle hurdle relay, where you actually have teams race back and forth up and down the track. So a team will be in two lanes. Have one guy go this way and one guy go back this way, and you run four guys back and forth, and the first team wins. It's called a shuttle hurdle relay. Well, they needed one more person because they had three hurdlers who were sophomore, junior, senior age, and then they had me. So I got to run in the varsity shuttle hurdle relay as a freshman, and I think we finished. I want to say we finished third in the meet. And so we scored 6 points for the team. And because I was on that team, I got 25% of those points. So I scored 1.5 varsity points my freshman year.
Wow.
There you go.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
In track. And so, so then, sophomore year comes around, and we've got a pretty good team, and I get to, and I've grown and I've gotten stronger, and I played varsity basketball as a sophomore. So I went through that training and all that. And I get to compete in varsity track as a sophomore, and same events, high hurdles, low hurdles, high jump. And then sometimes now at this point, the mile relay, I would start to run in the mile relay. And those kind of became my 4 events throughout my career. And because I competed in so many events, I had an opportunity to score a lot more points than a lot of other folks if I would place. And so I actually was able to, because of that, I scored. I went back and I just double checked this, but and I think this is one of the reasons why when Andy Wolf was advocating to the committee that I should be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think this was one of the things he was talking about, was because I scored. I led the team in scoring my sophomore, junior, and senior years. So I scored the most points now, and so I think that contributed to that decision. But Andy Wolf as a coach was, he was really young back then. I mean, he was probably 28, 27, 28, 29 when he was coaching that team. And he had some really good athletes even before us. I mean, you had, Reed Redmond running the half mile and the quarter mile, would go on. I think he went to Tennessee or someplace and competed athletically. You had Mike Shields, of course. You had his brother Gary Shields. You had Tim Ryan, who was a great sprinter. He had a state champ in the pole vault, whose name I'm going to forget. It was in the mid 70s. He was I can't remember his name, but he had a state champ in the pole vault one year before I started. And he was just a great all around coach, and he was very laid back, and he could personalize things. He could make you feel like he could give you things to do and motivate you in a very relaxed way to take care of your own business and to practice in a way that allowed you to move towards success. I mean, he wasn't, none of us are perfect, and he was one guy trying to coach all these different events because the nowadays I think high schools, have
Right.
special coach, have event coaches, and all this stuff. And we didn't have any of that, right? I mean, we just had one coach. But it definitely was that kind of personal attention that he was able to provide that was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Did you realize, Paul, back then? I mean, just the legendary status of Coach Wolf, and obviously looking back now, and not just the longevity, but just the impact. Having the track named after him, and everything that goes underneath that. I mean, did you realize that back then?
Yes, that was something that was kind of your obligation to pass that down, right, to the younger athletes on the team, and that coach wasn't just a great coach, but he also had kind of walked the walk and had kind of paved the way
Yeah,
for the program as an athlete as well.
yeah,
And so that was definitely, and there were lots of stories about Andy Wolf and his running prowess, and how he would show the kids up sometimes when they get too uppity. And
that's right.
one story I remember him telling about kids who got too rowdy on the bus one day, coming back from a cross country meet. This is before our year, but they apparently somebody did something naughty in the back of the bus, mooned somebody or something, and and uh, and they mooned like one of the parents of somebody who was a parent of one of the kids. They called the school, and Andy found out about it, and talked about it with the principal, and the principal told him about it, and Andy goes, "I'll take care of this." And so he tells the team, he goes, "Okay, this Saturday, there's a mandatory practice this Saturday. We're all going to meet at, I can't remember the name of the park. Is it Sherwood Forest? Is there a park? Or I can't remember there's a big park, Stanberry Park. Is there Stanberry Park?
Stansbury's in Mount Washington, or Nagel Park.
I think it was Stanberry Park in Mount Washington.
Okay.
And he took them all out there, and he says, "Today, you get to follow me." And he ran them all until they were ragged. That's the story I heard anyway. That was the legendary story
That is
about
great
Andy
story.
Wolf, the disciplinary style of Andy Wolf. It's got to be productive and constructive, and there's something beneficial to it, but it still teaches the lesson. Kind of what he was about.
Wow. That's a great story. But the one thing before you said, that you thought, I just want to throw this out here, Steve. Talk about these records here. So, he's got an Anderson record for the 120-yard high hurdles, 300-meter low hurdles, high jump. He's got Anderson record, shuttle hurdle relay Anderson record. He's got an indoor track record for 50-yard low hurdles. He's got a high jump for the Anderson. So he's got multiple, things that's why not only, a great athlete in basketball, but this right here says pretty much why he's in a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I got to tell you guys a quick story, okay? And I don't know how much time we have, but I want to tell you a quick story because I'm getting ready. So it's 6 o'clock, and I think, well, I got to go find my Anderson gear. I got to gear up, right, for this thing. So I did, obviously. And I'm rummaging through our closet. I'm looking for some stuff that I want to show you guys. And with our Anderson 1980 Anderson track and field season summary.
Look at that!
Wow!
Look at that!
So I want to show you that in just a second. And I'm walking and I'm looking through some stuff, and my phone rings. And I look down at my phone, and the name on the phone is Woprice.
What?
Not Dave.
Dave Woprice?
And I pick up the phone, and it's Dave Woprice calling me out of the blue.
Are you kidding?
No way.
Right hand to God.
Yeah.
Dave Woprice called me tonight at 6 o'clock to tell me congratulations on the Hall of Fame, and that he wants to he's trying to get some people together to come and get a table and that kind of thing. And that's so cool. We spent 20 minutes catching up.
Yeah.
And I think the last time I saw Dave was 2010. I think when it was the year that one of the years when they did the alumni basketball game between
Yes.
Turpin
Oh,
and Anderson.
yep.
And he and I were both there on that particular evening. And actually, I think we've seen each other since then. I think we saw each other. We had a 35th anniversary, I think, since then. But we saw each other at that volleyball.
Oh, sure.
Place, yeah, on Beachmont.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But in any event, no, I mean, and, some things are just not coincidental, right? I mean, it was
No.
just, but that is a true story. And he did warn me, Dan, that you were going to ask me about where I lived, and so the story just said, this is what they're gonna ask you. So just be ready for it.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, we're trying to get that boy on too, and he's been kind of not getting back with us. He's kind of not answering our text message, so I have to get on him a little bit more
So
about
if he
that.
sees this, he's going to watch this. He's got to get on with us.
He'll be responsive now. He'll be responsive after this, because I told him I was coming on with you guys.
We got stories about him.
Yeah. Great guy. Great. He was my point guard. We ran together for,
That's right.
for 3 years. So,
well, his hair's not as long as it was back then.
Yeah, he did kind of have that Pete Maravich thing going.
That's right.
Back in the day.
So
that's
true. I have a question for you, Paul.
Sure.
So you set all these records, and unbelievable career at Anderson, and then you went on to college, which we'll talk about. But I mean, I just can't help but to think what difference that might have made if you would have been running in today's nice surfacing that they run on, as opposed to the cinder tracks that they had back then.
Yeah, it was the funny story is that my senior year, that cinder track probably it might have cost me a trip to the state meet. 2 days before the prelims for the district, I was working on my starts, and I tripped up over the hurdles, and I just yard sailed it. I just fell and just knocked myself silly. I've still got cinders in my knee from that.
Probably, yeah.
Andy Wolf had to almost carry me up to his office and clean out the wound and everything. And I just wasn't right for the district meet that year. Yeah. So I think there might be something to that. Fortunately for me, a couple weeks later, Andy entered me in this multi-event competition called the Willoughby Octonary, which is at Willoughby South High School in Cleveland. And it was 8 events, not 10. And I don't remember the events exactly, but I do remember it finished with the half mile, and then 30 minutes later, the mile. So you had to run the mile and then the mile back to back for the last 2 events. And it was a invitational thing. And I ended up finishing 3rd in that. And Andy's always kind of called that like an informal state championship for multi-events. Right. And so, I think that probably played a role as well in terms of his decision to nominate me. But because I did go on then in college, to your question, Steve, that I did go on and become a decathlete in college at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma. And we were national NAIA, National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. We weren't NCAA, but we had great athletes that competed. It was just a different, it just wasn't NCAA. And I made it to nationals twice as a sophomore and as a senior. And my sophomore year, I finished 9th. My junior year, I pulled a hamstring and didn't qualify. And then my senior year, I finished 5th and made All-American. And that event was that meet was in Charleston, West Virginia. And Andy and Coach Ellis, not you, Coach Ellis, but the other Coach Ellis. Yeah, Pat Ellis.
Yeah.
They played hooky from school and came over and watched the second day of the competition and videotaped it for me, which was really cool. And I still have that videotape. So that was a lot of fun. Yep.
Wow.
That's
very cool. Well, so how did you get from the high school to the college you went to? What was that process like, and how did you end up there?
So that's another funny story, because despite my despite the evidence that was very clear on the court, I still considered myself a basketball player. I wanted to play basketball in college. And I ended up through some family contacts being recruited to come and play basketball at Pacific Lutheran University, which is in Tacoma, Washington. And, you know, my father was a Lutheran pastor in Cincinnati, and he had lots of friends in the ministry and in the church, and PLU, as it's called, was affiliated with the church. And so I ended up at PLU, which interestingly enough had one of the best small college football programs in history when we were out when I was out there. I didn't play football for reasons we've discussed, but but they had a great football program. But anyway, I went there to play basketball, and I can still remember getting off the plane, the coach is there to meet me, and this was in the day when you could, you know, when you could meet the plane at the gate. You didn't have to, there was no security. And I still remember getting off the plane with my dad, and the basketball coach is looking up like this, and then he goes, and I could just see the look in his eyes. It's like, that's all the tall you are?
Oh, goodness.
And so I ended up not, I tried out for basketball, but I ended up not making the basketball team, and I ended up just running track in college. And I had a great track coach in college. My first track coach was a guy named Paul Hosef, who really helped me make the transition to college. You know, the hurdles are higher. You know, there's a lot of different, it's 400-meter intermediate hurdles rather than 300-meter low hurdles. So there were some transitions to make there, and we ran against some really good competition. And so it was a transition, but I did make that transition pretty well, and pretty much from the beginning, I thought I wanted to be multi-event athlete, and I finished third in the district decathlon for the region of colleges we were in my freshman year, and that kind of solidified it for me. It was like, okay, so I can compete at this level in multi-events, so I'm going to continue to move forward. And the next year I was district champion only because my teammate Phil Schott, who was one of the best athletes I've ever seen, was injured. So I won the district meet. Phil Schott, who was a year ahead of me, he was injured that year. The next year, when I was a junior, I got injured. He was national champion in the
oh my gosh
NAIA. And then the year after that, I ended up going to nationals and finishing fifth. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so wild career. But one thing I just want to share back to high school about that team. The thing that I remember the most, about that team is Andy Wolf, when he put this thing together for us. Of course, you guys remember all those, the banquets that we'd have, right?
Yes,
sure. They hand these out, and they talk about everybody and introduce everybody, and everybody gets their certificate. And when he put this together, people forget what a great team we had. And so this is what I'm most proud of, if I can show this to you guys. So first place.
Wow.
And we won 5 of the 6 big meets that we entered. We came in first place, if I can figure out how to do this.
No kidding.
First place. And then we were city champions. We were city sectional champions.
Look at that.
So
that's awesome.
So, and I just remember how much fun it was, to be part of a team and it was really, after the Turpin-Anderson split and the struggles that we had competing because the talent had been split, the kids that we'd all been playing with together, all our lives, are now in different schools, and we're not as competitive because we're not all together anymore. And to emerge as a senior and be on a really successful team was really, really a lot of fun. And, that obviously continued in track for Andy, and the basketball team, as we all know, reemerged as a powerhouse, as it should have. Those guys were fantastic. Frank and Fergie and Deeds and Cameron and Fleming and all those guys, Dayton, the Dayton brothers, they were fantastic. So it recovered, but you look back on it, it kind of it's logical that what happened, right? I mean, and it's you can look back at it and go, yeah, I understand why that happened. But it's really nice to be part of the kind of the return to a really competitive, solid, good program just in athletics overall for
Yeah.
Anderson.
That is awesome. So let's get into coming here in April. You'll be coming in
Yep.
town for the Hall of Fame, which is well overdue, and I can't wait to see you in person, and I'll definitely be there. But talk a little bit about that when you got either the email, the phone call, whatever it was. Talk a little bit about how that went down, and just talk a little bit about how exciting it is being in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I had Andy Wolf had texted me like a year earlier and said, send me all your college statistics. I'm going to nominate you for the Anderson Hall of Fame. And I said, okay, right. So I sent him my stuff and I said, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm honored, but I'm not going to be disappointed if I'm not accepted,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so many great athletes, a lot of whom you've had on your show.
Right.
And I just and so so 9 months later, I'm driving down the road and my phone rings and the name is Frank Brandy. And so I pick up the phone and I talk to Frank and he gives me the news, congratulates me, and so that was really exciting to get that news and very humbling. And then I got the notification about who I'm going in to the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame with,
Yeah.
and it's like Mark Reed,
Yeah.
Rick Becker, like these were the deities that we worshipped
Right.
when I was when I was in middle school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to, if you wanted to go to one of their games, you had to get your tickets by like Wednesday for Friday night game, or the game was sold out, or you couldn't get in.
Yeah.
And they were so much fun to watch, and of course, and they were both great baseball players too. I mean, I think I remember, if I remember correctly, I remember watching Mark Reed throw a no-hitter, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
And
interviewed him and talked about that, I think.
yeah, and he was ambidextrous, right? He threw a baseball right-handed and he shot that basketball left-handed, and he had that very unique shot. The ball, he kind of shot a knuckleball and it was super soft. And he had this super soft knuckleball shot. And I just remember watching those guys in the wars with Oak Hills and
Yeah.
all of that. And then of course, the baseball team that is going in,
Yeah.
which talk about legends, you have to forgive me. I think it's 1949. I got my letter
I
right
think
here.
it's the
Let me see what
50,
it is
the
here.
50s.
So,
A lot of the 50s, I think, like the 52, 54. But Charlie Brown, actual Charles Brown's son, is coming in town.
is he really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He's I'm trying to think how old he is now, but he's kept in contact with me for a little bit. So I know he's super excited because those teams in the 50s they were really, really good baseball teams.
Really good,
Yeah.
really good. And
Yeah.
that's part of the legacy that I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
when I was there. I mean, I remember, looking in the trophy case, outside the basketball arena, you look at those old trophies and,
Yep.
but there wasn't a lot of context to that. There were a lot of trophies and it was
Right.
really cool to look at. And that was another thing that motivated me was, when I'd come to those basketball games, as a kid, as a sixth grader, seventh grader, eighth grader, I'd look up and they had the track records up on the wall,
Yeah.
up above. And at the time, it was like it wasn't printed. It was like it was this black surface. It was framed in glass, and they had the white letters that you stick in,
Yeah.
you know.
I know what you're
And
talking about. Yeah.
and I can remember, looking at, thinking, boy, it'd be great to have my name up there one of these days. That'd be
And
so
you're
cool.
there.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going in with another runner with Mike Shields. Is that right?
Mike Shields, yes, another legend.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean that's a really cool honor to go with him. And did you ever get to see him run, or do you remember him when you were like because he's a few years older than you, right?
He's a few years older. His brother Mark, of course, was in our class, and so I
Right.
ran track with Mark,
Okay.
all through high school. But Mike was around. I think he went to college at UC and he competed there, and he was around. And I can remember seeing him around the track a lot and helping out with the distance runners sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, and I should have mentioned him along with Mark and Rick, because he's an equal level legend in terms of his achievements.
Yeah.
So
it's weird
I'm
for
just
us
honored to
because,
go in with those guys. It's just amazing. So
yeah, and he was our teacher in high school for us, for
Yeah.
Steve and I.
oh, really?
Yeah,
He was our business teacher. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
He
yeah.
taught me how to balance a checkbook. And it's
Well,
still not
that's a
working.
life skill that,
Yeah.
believe me, they don't teach anymore.
No, they
Yeah.
don't. No, they don't. Yeah. All right. So get us caught up before we finish here about your family and where you're living and what you're doing, and I know we're going to hear all this, but there's going to be a lot of people that's going to love to watch this podcast as well.
So my wife Sandra and I, we met in Florida in the late 80s. We worked together and we got married in 1991. We've been married for 33 years.
Yes.
We have twin daughters,
Oh,
fraternal twins. Were born in 1993. So they are 30 now.
okay.
And they are real miracle babies. They were 26-week preemies in
Oh my goodness.
1993.
Wow.
And pound 11 and a pound 14 at birth.
Oh my
Dang.
gosh.
And
Wow.
they, through God's grace, they made it, all the way through without any major issues from their prematurity. They are both grown and live on the East Coast. Daughter Jordan lives in Amherst, Massachusetts, and she's a data science analyst, or data scientist, excuse me. She'll
Wow.
be very upset with me if I called her an analyst. She's a data scientist. And daughter Alex is works in international affairs in Washington, D.C. for a private company that does a lot of work with the federal government with USAID and does logistical work on aid projects to foreign countries and that kind of thing. So,
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
both way smarter than me, doing things that I could never imagine
Right.
doing.
That's
So,
crazy. And,
You
and
did
you're
something right there. That's great.
and you're
yep.
out in Colorado, right? That's where you're
Out
out.
in Colorado, and I was actually born in Colorado. So
Oh, really?
we lived in Colorado till I was about 3. I was born in Denver, and I had my very first memory was leaving Colorado, and so it was just kind of coincidental that we ended up matriculating back here. But we do love it here on the Western Slope, and my wife and I are both like chief financial officer types. We've got a small consulting firm, and we do fractional CFO consulting for small businesses and nonprofits. And then I also am CFO for a small retail company in Aspen called High Society Free Ride Company. We sell mostly skis, snowboards, inflatable stand-up paddleboards, that kind of outdoor recreational equipment. So
That's great.
yep. So
That,
that's
that
what we do.
that is awesome. So I know I kind of warned you about this a little bit I probably should have warned you well before this, but we're going to get into the end of this here. We're going to wrap it up,
Sure.
but I want to do your favorite memory from high school, college, and then maybe your favorite teacher or coach. So let's start off with your favorite high school memory.
My favorite memory from high school, I had the pleasure, I think, of reminiscing about it with Dave Wilprice just before the show. And it was my senior year, and we were playing at Turpin in basketball. And we were leading that game by 1 point as the clock wound down. And I threw the ball into Dave. Dave was bringing the ball up the floor against full court man-to-man pressure, being guarded by a young sophomore point guard for Turpin by the name of Jimmy Laritz,
Yes.
who you may remember.
Yes,
Sure.
we do.
And as we're coming up the court, out of my right eye, I see Laritz steal the ball from Wilprice. And there's like 10 seconds left in the game. And he steals the ball from Wilprice, and he's running down the court. He's coming down the left-hand lane, and I'm in the middle of the court. And I could jump in high school. I was a pretty good leaper, and I was bigger than Laritz, and I was a senior and he was a sophomore. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna deposit this ball in the top of the bleachers. I'm going to deposit this and end this kid's, run at winning the big game against
Yeah.
the rival. So he brings the ball in. I come in and I, full 100% effort, go up, and it's like, where's the ball?
Oh.
I hit him and I tripped and fell. The ball goes in the basket. The crowd roars. Turpin's up 1 point, up by one, and he's got an and one with a free throw to go up 2 with 6 seconds left in the game.
Oh.
So line up for the free throw. I'm on the left block. Larich shoots the free throw. He misses it. Ball comes to me. I rebound it, and the play that Dick Sander drew up for us was, outlet to midcourt, and I think it was Woprice at midcourt that I threw it to, on the side, and then we had Jay Scavo in the corner. Jay Scavo ran to the corner to take the shot. So outlet to Woprice, he throws it to the corner. Scavo launches a shot from the corner. I'm racing down the middle of the court. Scavo's shot hits the back of the rim, bounces off. I go up with my left hand, tip it up. It glances off the rim, goes off the backboard and spins in at the buzzer, and we win the game.
No, I love it. I love that.
That's my favorite memory.
Oh, that's my favorite memory too.
It's the only time Dick Sander ever hugged me.
Oh my gosh, that's a great memory.
So that's my favorite memory. And Lonnie Wheeler of the a columnist for the Inquirer did a great little column about that. It was in the paper the next day because he happened to be at that game. And so there's a great little column I can share with you guys that he wrote about that game that night.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
So that's my favorite high school memory.
Yeah. So let's go. What about college? Let's go into college.
So college has got to be my my senior year at the decathlon. It's the second day of the decathlon. My dad's there, my mom's there, Coach Wolf is there, Coach Ellis is there. And I'm sitting in, I can't remember, 6th or 7th place with one event to go. And it's the 1500 meters. And I had always done a lot of running, and even though I wasn't a distance runner, for a big guy who was a sprinter, I could run distances pretty well. I was a pretty good 1500 meter runner for a decathlete. So, I need to pass at least one guy, maybe 2 guys, to get into that All-American group. And so that we start the 1500, and like most inexperienced distance runners, most of the guys race off, and get out to a big lead, and I'm behind them. And so you kind of watch the video, and I gradually catch up and come back at them. And then on the final lap, me and one other guy from I can't remember his name. He's from a school in Oklahoma, really good athlete. But we kind of duke it out on the back stretch of the 1500, and we come around the corner, and I get ahead of him. He makes a run to come at me around my right shoulder, and as I'm running and we're on the final curve coming into the home stretch. As I'm running, I'm thinking I'm pulling away from him. I'm thinking I got this race won, and I see it out of the corner of my eye, and I look over, and when I look over, I lose my balance a little bit, and I go to the left, and it was one of those tracks with a raised curb, and my left foot hits the raised curb, and I kind of go,
oh no.
And it's like, and I catch my balance, and I don't go out of bounds, and I don't foul, and I stay with the guy, and we sprint down to the end, to the finish line. And I wasn't the decathlon champion. I didn't finish first in the decathlon, but I did win the 1500. Yeah, so I beat him at the line in the 1500, and so I won as a track athlete. I won the last race that I raced in. So I was very good.
We're on top.
That's awesome. And then obviously, give us a coach or teacher that you had.
So there's so many. One of the things that upon reflection that I've really come to appreciate is the education that I think we all received at Anderson in the Forest Hill School District. There's so many really good teachers, from back in elementary and middle school and high school. It's hard for me to not single out Andy Wolf because I had him as a teacher. I'm a big history buff. He really instilled in me. He and Ed Benton, if you remember Edward P. Benton.
I do.
Sure.
I do.
Yeah.
Those two guys really instilled in me the importance of understanding history, to understand events and put things in context and make sense of things in your life.
Right.
And so, but there's so many great teachers. Mrs. Harris was probably challenged me as much or more than anybody. There are just so many, and I couldn't name them all, but I think I probably would I'd probably settle on Andy as the guy.
Sure.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. He's been that for a lot of people we've had on this podcast. I mean, he's influenced a lot of people, and no, that's some great memories. And I tell you what, I'm really excited. We're super excited. I'll be there for the Hall of Fame, and I can't wait to meet you in person, meet your wife in person. Is your wife? Obviously, I hope your wife's coming too. I would.
My wife is coming, and my brothers are going to be there as well. My older brother Mark, who ran track, and he and I actually competed against each other in the hurdles when he was a senior and I was a junior. And while he was faster than me, he never beat me in the hurdles.
Let the record show.
Yes, we got it taped. It's on tape.
And then my younger brother Keith, who was who really kind of made a name for himself in the music program.
Absolutely.
And remains to this day an extraordinary musician and vocalist. He still has those talents. So I'm looking forward to catching up with both of them, as well as as many people. I'm really looking forward to meeting you both as well. And Dan, I don't remember you, but Steve, I do remember you from when I was in high school. I remember you from back in the day.
I was a little brat. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you both as well, and everybody else. As I said to Dave Woprice before we hung up, I said I'd love to turn into kind of a reunion, kind of a trip, and just be able to really see folks and catch up. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we need to make that happen, and then we'll give Dave a hard time if he doesn't get on that podcast. We can really get on him there at that night too. So, but Paul, again, it was great. Finally, great talking to you, and I'm really excited for you for in April, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to love seeing this. I know that Andy Wolf and Frank and all these people were very thankful that we're getting some of the people on that are coming in the Hall of Fame. So, again, thank you for taking the time to join us here, and can't wait to see you in April.
Well, it is my pleasure and my honor, and I appreciate it very much, guys. What you do right now is really important. I mean, it's really important to the context of a community, of communities today, in today's world, where we have to use these tools to keep us knit together, right? We have to, because there's so many distractions in the world today. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to say toast to you guys.
Yes.
Cheers to you, man.
Go Redskins.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah,
Love it.
That's perfect. We love it. We love it. So again, we're gonna we'll do it on that great drink right there with that. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Paul Menter, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you guys next week.